This is CHSR 97.9 FM here in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. This is Python's Paradise, your film and music show, and this is your host, Greg Gilbert, aka the Python Hyena. And folks, the Phantom of the Paradise is celebrating its 45th anniversary this year. I would have been 2 years old when that came out, but I didn't see it till years and years later. But I love the film, and I love Brian De Palma's work. And, of course, I've had Jessica Harper on here back in 2017 to talk about the film. Well, you know what? What makes this stand out as for a De Palma film is it's actually part musical. Actually, it's got a lot of musical elements in it. And I have one of the dancers on the phone with me today, the lovely, the beautiful, and the absolutely dazzling Sarah Ballantine. Did I get your last name right?
Ballantine. It's like Valentine, but with a B as in boy.
Okay, Ballantine. Okay. Yeah. How are you doing there in California? We got hot weather here, but I bet it's...
Well, it's beautiful. I mean, it's always beautiful, but it's a particularly beautiful day today.
Yeah.
No earthquakes so far, so we're on terra firma today, which is great. And I'm doing really well. I'm happy as a clam.
You know what? That brings me to something, because I noticed in one of your films you worked with Nick Santamaria.
He's coming over today.
I think he's hysterical. I got him on Facebook, and I always read his statuses. And I remember, I had him on my show back a couple of years ago. And he, when the earthquake happened, he said he was standing at a urinal and he didn't even have to shake.
It's really funny. So you must have seen Bride of Finkelstein and those movies that the Biffle and Schuster oeuvre.
You know what? I haven't seen them. I was clicking on some of your other films. And I noticed his name on that one, and I was like, she worked with Nick Santamaria. This guy is so underrated.
Oh, he is. No, he should be the biggest thing ever. In fact, today, later this afternoon, he's coming over here with his partner, Will Ryan, at their Biffle and Schuster, this vintage comedy duo, a la Abbott and Costello, Laurel and Hardy.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very funny. And we're doing a show Sunday night in Altadena, which is, far away. But we're going to be rehearsing that today. So they're coming here today. It's just wild that you mentioned him. So I'll tell him that I spoke to you, too. I'm sure he'll be tickled.
I read his stats on Facebook, and I always put a comment here and there, and I think he's hilarious. But one of the things I really liked about him, he was in a movie called Bikini Beach Race, which was really, really bad. But I love the fact that he loves talking about how bad the movie is.
A movie can be terrible and people will still love it. They'll find something about it to love. People knock that movie Showgirls. It's like one of my favorite movies. I think it is so entertaining.
Well, look at The Room. Tommy Wiseau was my first interview.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah, look at that film.
Oh my gosh. Well, and even what was the one that they made, last year, the year or year before, that was incorporating that, and
the disaster
that
movie.
Wonderful actor played him.
James Franco. Did he get swerved at the Oscars or what?
Yeah, he did. He was fantastic. That was annoying to me because he did a great job.
Well, you know what? He won the Golden Globe, and then because of this Me Too movement stuff, I guess he got accused of stuff. But even his sister-in-law, I think it was Alison Brie, she even said that there's been no basis on this, and it's like they screwed over James Franco, as far as I'm concerned. It became all politics.
No, he was wonderful, and it was timing. It was really bad timing. He taught at USC. I went to see a couple films that he I either wrote or directed or both at USC. They were really good. I mean, he's such a talented person. I doesn't excuse any bad behavior if there was any, but there was this whole period where there was no substantial evidence, and people could just accuse you, and that was a fact.
Yeah.
And I hope that passes over, because that's just not fair.
Yeah, well, I'll say one good thing the Me Too movement did do. You're getting a lot more female dominant roles in movies now, and I do like that.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
I do too.
Yeah.
And a lot more like non-binary roles, and a lot more all-inclusive, diverse roles. Things are definitely shifting. There's going to be, show business is always changing, but it's becoming kind of. I think it's going to be better. I don't know. I hope so. I hope people are happier that there's more work for more people.
Yeah, but they're not quite there yet. I don't see enough Nick Santamaria yet.
Well, he'll love hearing this because he's so hilarious. I went and saw him do Funny Thing Happened on the way to the Forum. He played Pseudolus, and I have seen that show many times because my dad did it with Phil Silvers here in LA, and it went to Broadway. It was a revival, and I've seen it so many times. Nick was fantastic. He was brilliant. He was a brilliant Pseudolus. He can do anything.
I remember one joke he put. He said his toilet was backed up. He said he didn't realize his toilet could go in reverse.
That's funny.
I just picture, I don't know where he comes up with them, but it reminds me a lot of Stephen Wright.
Yes, it's his brain. I mean, his brain is quite highly developed
Yeah.
in another world. I mean, it's almost like he sees things, skewed down the middle or slightly, sideways, and it's always hilarious.
I think he's great. Yeah, I'm really glad you're getting to work with him too. So yeah.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, listen. I'm tickled. I would be the Margaret Dumont to their Biffle and Schuster anytime, and anytime they want me to do anything, I jump at it. So I'm excited about Sunday night. I think it's going to be hilarious. We sing old songs. We do sketches. It's like an old time, not vaudeville per se, but like an old time happy show. Everybody has a big smile on their face and has a great time.
Now, when you say sketches with Nick Santamaria, does that mean he draws you guys?
Why, no. Why, no, that does not mean that at all. It means that we...
I know that's why he would play with the words there.
Exactly. That's what he does. But no, we would do, comedic sketches. Like I'm doing one where I play an interviewer, and I'm interviewing them and asking them really hilarious questions that they will answer hilariously. And sometimes I'm in love with him. Sometimes I hate him. Just all different kinds of attitudinal things. And we sing and we do harmony, and he plays the ukulele. It's just really cute. It's like a little old vaudeville show.
Well, you know what? The Phantom of the Paradise celebrating 45 years. Did you know that movie is a major hit in Winnipeg?
Oh. At the time that we did the movie, which was, for me, it was my first movie as a grown-up going out of town on location and, working for weeks at a time out of LA and leaving. I never, even though I've been an actress my whole life, I never had that experience yet. I had no idea, nor did anyone, how big the movie was going to be in 40 years. I mean, you know what I'm saying? We all had a blast doing it, and Brian, of course, became a superstar director. But at the time, we were just having a ball doing this movie that could have been nothing, and it found a niche audience. I didn't know it was in particularly great reverence. And is it Winnipeg that you just
Winnipeg.
said?
There's a major cult following in Winnipeg.
Wow. Well, whenever they have a screening here at one of our vintage cinemas, I try to go just because it's so cool that the new audiences discover it. Like you were a baby when it came out, but people all ages seem to like it. I mean, it's it's really a wonderful movie.
Mm-hmm.
It just has so much going for it. It looks great. The music's great. The performances, the whole idea of it was so hip and cool.
Yep.
The acting was great. William Finley was so wonderful. It's so sad that, we lost him. He was brilliant.
William Finley, yeah, we lost him, and he, of course, was Winslow / the Phantom. And De Palma's used him a lot, and
yeah.
but here he was like the central role. He kind of had this John Lennon appearance to him.
He was very, very tall and slender,
mm-hmm.
and had a great physicality. I mean, I wish, he could have been a really big superstar, I think, in movies, because he was just a wonderful actor and very interesting to watch. Just, you could never take your eyes off him.
Well, yeah, like De Palma even used him as a voice in Dressed to Kill. Like he could utilize. Yeah, he was a voice of Bobby. Excuse me. In over the answering machine and Dressed to Kill.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So, and of course he was in the Black Dahlia, which was I think might have been the last thing he did, and that was De Palma. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it was. I always liked it. Of course, before Phantom of the Paradise, he was in Sisters with Margot Kidder and Jennifer Salt. So,
right.
Yeah. So
he had. When I met Brian, I think that was the main thing he had done. He'd gone to Sarah Lawrence. I knew some people that knew him. I was going to Immaculate Heart College, and that's where he was looking for possible cast members, like to round out the cast. Because my acting teacher, who's in the movie, maybe you've interviewed him, William Shepard.
No, who's he playing this?
He was sort of the ringleader. You remember the big crow wedding scene?
Yeah.
And he was, the last image you see, he was crawling on the ground.
I know who you're talking about. Okay,
Yeah.
Okay, he had blonde hair, right?
Yes.
Yes. Because when William Finley is crawling on the floor, it's like he's not getting what's going on, and when Finley's character dies on the floor, he's like kind of looking around, and everybody's dancing, and then he starts dancing like this is part of the show. That is your acting teacher?
Well, okay, here's the story. William Shepard and William Finley were in a play in New York called Dionysus in '69, which was before my time. But it was a huge underground theatrical hit, and I'm pretty sure that's how Brian met them both then.
Mm-hmm.
And when it came time to make this movie, he wanted them to be a part of it. And so Bill Shepard was teaching acting at Immaculate Heart College, where I went to school. Here's the long backstory, I know.
Mm-hmm.
And he put together a few people to meet Brian and possibly be in the movie. And that's how I ended up getting a part in it. So, it wasn't like I went on an open call and had to dance. You know what I mean? It was really because I knew Bill Shepard and he was going to be a part of this. And then that's how it all came together. And Bill did a few other movies. He was in Death Race 2000.
Okay.
That was a movie you've heard of.
I have.
His most famous thing was he, along with Rick Baker, I believe, was in the gorilla suit in the first, with Jessica Lange. No, help me.
King Kong.
That's it.
Yeah.
The gorilla suit in King Kong. Yeah, so he did a few movies, but he teaches acting. I believe he runs the theater department at either Seattle, University of Seattle, maybe. I don't know. We were in touch for a while. We haven't been in touch lately, but you can find him on Facebook. I'm pretty sure.
You know what? I would love to have him on the show. I remember him.
Oh, for sure. He was very wonderful and really featured in the movie. And
yes, but I love the fact when he's crawling around the floor, like he doesn't realize what is really, because you see him jabbing at Swam with the thing, when he's just getting part of the act. He doesn't know what's really going on, and when it kind of dawns on them what's going on, but everybody else is dancing. You see him kind of get up and you see him do that little spin. It's like, okay, let's keep going with it. I remember him.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, of course. Yeah, he'd be a wonderful interview because I think he's written a book and he's been teaching at universities, and he's had a very, very colorful life.
William Shepard. I'm going to look him up and see if I can get him on here. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I didn't know his name, but when you mentioned him, it like dawned on me because I remember that so well because he just, and it's not even the camera's focused on him. You just kind of see it,
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that was done well. And of course, William Finley, that was great. That climatic scene where he as a phantom dives down, and that was just all well done.
Yeah, terrific.
I want to talk about you as a dancer, though. Were you one of the Crow showgirls?
Okay, here are the parts I was in the movie.
Okay.
Do you remember, because you seem to be so hip about every frame of this film?
Yeah.
The black and white faces who were stitching up Captain
Yes.
Cook in the coffin. I was one of those.
Oh yes, you were one of the ones that they were stitching the body parts to create beef.
Right.
Yeah.
And now I stayed friends with Garrett for years. There's certain people in that movie that I stayed friends with, and he was so incredible.
I've tried to get Garrett on here. I just can't seem to get in touch.
What do you mean? You can't reach him, or he doesn't respond?
Well, here's the thing with Facebook. A lot of times messages get filtered, and people don't see them. And sometimes I'm lucky and people see them and get back to me. But I would love to get Garrett on here, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if he's in LA or New York or where he is, but the last time I saw him was about 10 years ago, to be honest with you. So I don't know. But if possibly if you reach out and say, I just interviewed Jessica Harper and Saratoga Ballantine. My real name's Saratoga, by the way. I was named after a racetrack. I know, classy all the way. But, that might help. You know what I mean? If he knows you've done some of these other interviews, so I wouldn't hesitate to drop names.
So I don't have to approach him at the shower with a plunger and stick that on his face.
No, he'd be, I think, and he's such a good actor, and I don't know, he hasn't worked in a while, but I don't know if that's because of choice or just show business being what it is,
I think he's hilarious.
He's hilarious. Oh, no doubt about it. All the guys, that rock with the juicy fruits, all those guys were all improv guys and super, super talented, and who I've seen in other things over the years. And, Brian had a really good eye for casting. I mean, he knew who to get. He did.
Yeah. Well, I love that scene where they're stitching up the body parts and stuff because they were wearing like the Kiss makeup, and that was a great music scene. And I'll have to look for you because I know they had at least one or two females in there that were grabbing hold of the limbs,
We were all grabbing, trying to have time on camera. What are you talking about? I wasn't even acting. We all wanted to be seen. We're all pushing each other aside. So, okay, no, wait, that's just one of the scenes, but I'll just fill you in quickly.
Sure.
And then there was a dancer in a green afro and a bikini who danced across the stage.
Yeah, that was the scene where Jessica also did her little twirl and...
Right.
Yeah.
Throws a hat.
Yep.
Hat. I mean, I thought she was the coolest thing ever. I have to tell you. I thought, I loved her voice. Because I've always had a very high voice, which is why I probably did cartoons. But she had this very low, melodious, kind of sexy, smoky voice. And when she sang, it was in deeper register. And when she danced, she was so effortless, and when she threw that hat, I thought it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen.
Jessica Harper, it took me about 2 years to get her on due to scheduling, but I remember I made a donation to PXE International, which is something, a charity that she's involved with, and And they put me in touch with her, which I thought was really cool. And I was delighted to get her on. It was December of 2017 I got her on, and talked about Suspiria and Phantom of the Paradise. She loved doing Phantom of the Paradise, I'll tell you.
Well, I really thought, and she did have a wonderful career. I thought she was going to be a superstar. I did, because she was just beautiful, talented, sang, acted great, everything about her, her look, everything. I mean, gorgeous person, gorgeous woman, talented. I find show business so confusing sometimes, because the things you think might happen. I mean, it's all wonderful to work however you work. Not everybody has to be a superstar, but you'd think certain people who had it all over the place in spades would have had more of a run or more of a shot. Yep. And I'm not just talking about myself, but I mean, in general, I feel like that's something that gets squashed somehow.
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. But what were your memories working with Jessica on this movie?
I remember her being very, very kind to me. I mean, look, she was the star, and I was a dancer, and I was a crow woman also, by the way. So those are my three scenes. But she was very, very nice to me, and we talked. We had coffee a few times. I think a few times we'd gone, a bunch of us, out to dinner. We were in Dallas, Texas, and a lot of the other people, the extras and stuff, came from SMU, where I got to help. I'm trying to remember this. I wanted to remember this for you. We did a casting session at SMU, Southern Methodist University, and I guess they put everybody through some choreography, some steps, I don't know, and then they went by looks, we need a brunette, we need a blonde, we need this and that. And that was sort of how the cast got together. And then we shot most of the film in this old opera house, and I can't remember the name of it, but it was probably something like the Dallas Opera House, and we all lived pretty close by, so we'd all go to work together in the same car, and we all got to be, pretty chummy. That's what happens when you're on location. You have these immediate friendships and these intimate, talks, but then it's over and you don't see the people anymore. But she was very, very nice to me, and we talked a lot about show business. She knew who my dad was. My dad was a character actor and a magician, and she knew who he was. She knew, some stuff about my family, and I just really thought she was fantastic.
Yeah, and you say you wore the afro and you wore green, right?
It was a green afro wig, and I wore.
I think I remember you.
Yeah, it's pretty memorable. Even when I see the film, and I can't tell you how many people have given me as birthday presents, Christmas presents, DVDs of the movie, DVDs with extras, DVDs. I guess there's a guy here in LA who's I can't tell you how many Phantom of the Paradise freaks I've met, and who know, like you, so many intimate details that I don't even remember, but I've been gifted many copies of it. So if you watch it, I could even tell you exactly, but I have to watch it again to get the timing, and I could tell you when, like at 34 minutes 8 seconds, there I go in the green. That's why I like to watch it with friends, because I pretty much have to point out, because I look so different in every scene.
Well, I love the Crow Showgirls, that. Number one, I loved it when you guys are down there dancing and whatnot, and then the music gets almost a little intimate, and you got Jessica Harper coming out, and dancing down that aisle. I love that.
It's just great. It just all came together so well.
Talk about being a Crow Showgirl.
Oh, that was great. I was nervous about it, but it turned out just great. The outfit was hilarious. It was the only time I've ever been a showgirl, Greg, so very grateful. Because as a child, I think I did want to be like a burlesque dancer. And as a child, I mean at 4. And I think I kind of, because I saw Gypsy when I was little. And I decided that I wanted to be a stripper when I grew up, because I thought that was the most fun in the movie. And my mother was horrified. And so being a crow woman and that, little G-string with the big headdress, was as close as I ever got. So I just remember we had choreography rehearsals. We had to keep a certain spacing.
Mm-hmm.
We couldn't get too close. They tried to give everybody camera time, like an old Busby Berkeley movie where we didn't know if they were shooting from the ceiling, what kind of configurations they were making. But see, this is a problem with a bunch of girls. Everybody's wanting to be on camera.
Yeah.
So, despite what the director or the choreographer is saying, we're all vying to be seen, which is hilarious.
Well, Brian De Palma has directed, Sisters, Dressed to Kill, Body Double, Carrie.
Yeah,
but
he's never done anything worthwhile. No, I'm kidding.
I love those movies, but I gotta say, Phantom of the Paradise is so different from what he's ever done. What was it like for him, from your perspective, from your memory, for him to address doing a musical?
I think because he went to Sarah Lawrence and probably had dabblings, with musical stuff, that it was something that he really wanted to do. And maybe because it had horror and music, he was attracted to the idea of, because there hadn't been a lot of hip movie musicals at that time. Now, every 5 minutes, we've got some musical with, modern people, whatever. But at that time, we had old-fashioned musicals. We had Bye Bye Birdie in the 60s. We didn't have anything that combined sort of the rock and roll. Well, no, I can't say that. Elvis Presley did that. But it was a completely unique kind of concept.
Yep.
And I don't know, you probably knew this, but a few years ago, I got some vague inquiry because they were trying to turn it into a Broadway show. Did you know about this?
I think I heard something about that, but not for a while.
I mean, it may still be in the works because it takes years to get a musical produced on Broadway. But that could work. I mean,
Yes.
The music is fantastic. I still sing Old Souls whenever I have to do a ballad.
Yes.
That's a beautiful song. And I even have the Phantom of the Paradise songbook somewhere. I have to find it. But I think he liked musicals. I mean, I think he wanted to do something hip with a hip story and a musical. I don't know. I really don't know why he chose to do that, but
I got to bring up Archie Hahn, Jeffrey Kamener, and Peter Elbling, who were, of course, the Juicy Fruits, Beach Bums, and the Undead.
Oh, they're great. Let's see. How did their big song go? I feel like I could hear it in my mind's eye, but I can't really sing it for you. But the music was great, and they were so hilarious.
Well, what I like is the Juicy Fruits were so lame, that it was actually funny in that opening. But when they get to the Undead, they were so cool, because they're like Kiss makeup and stuff.
I know. Great.
But they were great together.
Oh, yeah. Well, they were all improv people, not groundlings. What were they? Were they off the wall? I'm not sure now. I can't remember. Archie Hahn is still around, and Peter is still around. George Memley, unfortunately, we lost him.
Yeah.
Who else? Who was the...
Yeah, we got to talk about Swan. Paul Williams.
Oh.
What was that like to work with him?
Well, first of all, he's a genius. Start there. And I did get to know him over the years. In a chunk of time, he was married to one of my agents, believe it or not. And we used to run into them at dinner. My dad and I, or whoever I would be out to dinner with, we'd run into them. But at the time, doing the movie, all I could think of was, he's brilliant, and he was a really good actor. He definitely had acting chops. I'm sure he would have liked to have done a lot more acting. I think he really had it.
You know what? A year or so ago, I went and saw the movie Baby Driver at the theater. And man, guess who shows up in the middle of it? Paul Williams.
Yeah, I know. So cool.
I wasn't expecting it. It was so cool to see him, too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know what's funny though? I always, if I ever got to talk to him, I'd bring this up. But I know I mentioned this to Jessica Harper, but I thought it was funny. He's this villain, Swan, tyrant villain in Phantom of the Paradise. Then you look at him in Smokey and the Bandit, and Burt Reynolds, first thing he does when he wakes up on that hammock, lifts his hat up and he laughs at him.
Oh, great.
I think it's funny. I guess Burt wasn't afraid.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I thought that was funny. But yeah, he is a brilliant musician. Very classy, class act. Even was in the Muppet movie. Like he was seemed to be gung ho on everything. So.
Oh yeah, no, he was great.
Yeah.
When people would talk to me and they would know who my father was, that gave us an instant rapport. I mean, I was pretty young when I did the movie, and I hadn't done much, although I've been an actor since I was 9. I got my SAG card, which is the, Screen Actors Guild union card when I was 9. But I hadn't done that many movies by then. And he knew who my father was, and he loved my dad. My dad did a comedy magic act, and we laughed about that, and he knew his work. So that was fun. That's what gave us a little more of a rapport. And plus, everybody was just nice. There's no reason not to be, really, when you're on location and you're doing a movie. That's like the dream of dreams. And, if you're not being, kept out in the freezing cold and having to wear a bikini, there's no reason not to have a great time. This is what actors live for.
Yeah. You had mentioned George Mamoli, of course, we lost. He played, of course, Philbin, the right-hand man of Swan. What were your memories of him?
We didn't have much of a rapport, except, this is another connection to my father, he was a big McHale's Navy fan, and that was the TV show that got us to California. So when he found out that my dad had been on that show, that's what gave us a relationship. That's what, we talked about mostly, because he loved Ernest Borgnine. He wanted to pick my brain about Ernest Borgnine. So we talked a lot about that. But he was just hilarious. I mean, his physicality and just the way he was. He was such a good actor, too. Just, had it. He just had it.
Well, I love that crow showgirl scene. But I got to ask, what was your favorite part about doing the film?
I would say, that was a fantastic day. That took more than a day, I think, the crow shoot. But I loved being in the black and white makeup and stitching up these. But it was really fun doing the concert.
Yes.
That was like a show within a show. We were on stage at this really cool old Dallas Opera House, all made to look, there was smoke and lights, and it was just super cool. I'd never done anything like that before, and I think that was probably my favorite part. But all of it was great. The memory becomes golden because it was so meaningful. You don't know it at the time, but these things become more meaningful with time, and it was just a fantastic experience all around.
Well, it's interesting because it didn't do well at the box office when it came out, but here it is 45 years later, and it's got a major cult following. I love it when films get discovered, and
Absolutely.
Yeah, because sometimes marketing just misses, and it doesn't work because of that, but then it gets discovered and it has a whole new life.
I would say it was ahead of its time. That would be, like, I think if it had come out later, it might have been a huge hit. And certainly now with this, dearth of movie musicals hitting the scene, I think it might have had, like, even if it came out after Phantom of the Opera, that movie musical, the recent one, or not that recent, the one with Emmy Rossum, it would have had another layer. But I think it was ahead of its time. I think people just couldn't quite. It was before Rocky Horror Show. There were other movies after it that could have paved the way. But that's why I think it has the cult following today, because since then, other movies have shown legs in this genre, which is kind of campy. It isn't even that campy, actually. It's played, well, it is a little campy, but super fun, and we want to be entertained, for God's sake.
I do love the Phantom costume that William Finley wore, that face mask thing he had. I thought that was cool.
God, yes.
I wonder where that's laying around. Somebody must have that.
Oh, that's a good question. Yes, I wonder if we have a Phantom of the Paradise museum somewhere.
Yeah.
Maybe Brian has it in his house.
Could. Well, another film I want to talk about that you were in where you played a nurse, The Nutty Professor. Now, I gotta say, Jerry Lewis, of course, did The Nutty Professor, but I gotta say, the one Eddie Murphy is in, I think, is even better. Because he's playing all these roles around that table, and I love the heart of the film where it deals with the weight, and I don't know where that came from because, of course, the Jerry Lewis one didn't deal with weight and all that stuff, but I love the dimensions in the Eddie Murphy version. Talk about being part of this and working with Eddie.
It was a wonderful fluke, as is everything in my entire career. The casting director was someone, her name was Alita Chappelle. I knew her from many, many years ago from like the Renaissance Fair, and she brought me in, and I can't remember if we did a table read for this. Golly, I can't remember, but I just was given this wonderful job and this wonderful scene with Eddie Murphy, who was a hoot to work with and really, really, really funny, even when the cameras were not rolling. And he was not comfortable in that fat suit. Remember in the scene I'm in, he's real big and he's going to get surgery and it sort of explodes. It was not a comfortable thing to be in, And he was very complimentary to me, and I, just had a fantastic time. And the director, I also got to be friends with Tom Shadyac, and when they were doing the table read for Liar Liar, he asked me to be a part of that, and we stayed friendly a little bit. It's like I say, it's funny, you do these things. It's not like Eddie Murphy and I go for coffee or anything, but when we were actually working together, and Steve Odekirk, he was involved with it. I think he was one of the writers or something. I mean, a lot of cool people came out of that movie too, but at least it was able to be a hit at the time. I think that movie was a box office hit.
Well, I remember my brother and I saw that at the theater, and we made the mistake of buying too much food, and we kind of felt bloated by the end of it.
Oh my God!
And speaking of Steve Odekirk, did you see Kung Pao Enter the Fist?
No, I'm going to be honest, I have not.
Well, that is a film that he had done that I think is hilarious.
Really?
Steve, he basically takes an old Japanese film and he puts his head over the top of the lead. And all the dialogue is intentionally doesn't match.
Wow.
Yeah. And I think that is one of the things I loved about it.
Wow. No, I have to check it out. Of course, I know his brother's work, a lot more because of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, or they're not brothers. They're not related, or are they related?
I don't know, but I would recommend you check out. I'd recommend you check Kung Pao Enter the Fist. He gets into a fist fight with a cow. You have to see that to believe it.
All right, I'm writing it down. I will definitely check it out.
Yeah, it's called Kung Pao Enter the Fist.
How will I find it? Where will I find it? Netflix?
You might find it on Netflix. You might find it on YouTube. but all the dubbing is intentionally bad and all pretty much done by him.
Oh, that is funny. God.
Yeah, there's very few other actors in it besides himself. But I love it. And that was a film that didn't do well when it came out either, but now it's got a cult following. But when I saw it, I just got it. It's like people were talking about, gee, the horrible dubbing and this and that, and I was like, that was the whole point.
Wow, that's fun.
Yeah, and I think it's great. It's basically making fun of kung fu movies like your Bruce Lee and stuff, and but
it's Kung Fu enters, not Kung
no, Kung Pao. Kung Pao.
Kung Pao? It is Kung Pao?
It's Kung Pao Enter the Fist.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think you might want to check that out if you like Steve Odekirk.
You got it.
Got it. Yeah, he put his own head on. Yeah, the dubbing, you'll notice the dubbing is so bad, but that is part of the point, and it's all done by him, apparently. Even the women.
Wow.
Yeah.
Pretty creative.
Yeah.
That takes some skill.
Yeah, I love Kung Pao. I've tried to. I'd love to get Steve on here at some point just to celebrate that film. It was just so funny, but yeah, he was involved with the Nutty Professor, and yeah, I think there was some great stuff done in that movie. And like I said, I thought it was funnier than Jerry Lewis's version of it.
Really? Well, I think Jerry Lewis is hysterical, and actually Nick Santamaria has given me new appreciation for Jerry Lewis. But yeah, I think Eddie Murphy did an amazing job. The rewrite, the way they adapted it was great. I just thought it was fantastic.
Yes. And of course, you was in a movie called Frozen Assets, and of course now Larry Miller is in that. Now he was also in The Nutty Professor. He's a guy that has some great timing. He had some great lines in Nutty Professor.
Yes, no, I've seen Larry a lot over the years, and he's, I don't know, I haven't seen him lately, but we stayed kind of friendly because we had those two movies together, which is funny. And I think he might have lived in the neighborhood that I was living in, Beechwood Canyon, or nearby there, because I would run into him like at the market or restaurants and stuff in the area. Such a great character actor.
I loved it in The Nutty Professor where Eddie Murphy as Sherman Klump finally gets in that chair and he goes, "Comfy? You want," he goes, "juice, coffee, juice, rack of lamb." Just this delivery of it.
Hilarious.
And Corbin Burson, I met him at Comic-Con back in March this year. You want to talk about a guy that loved being there. He was a hoot to meet.
Which Comic-Con was it?
It was in Toronto.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, Lisa Langlois invited me to go down there for that, to expand my brand, because I did a lot of the horror cons and
neat.
Yeah, I have to admit I liked Horrorama more than Comic-Con, because I found the Horrorama was a lot more intimate in terms of your interactions with the guests. But I found with Comic-Con, Corbin Burson was one of the ones that really stood out in terms of, like, it wasn't just a paycheck to him. This guy was really enjoying being there.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, I had a good interaction.
Wonderful guy.
Yeah.
He's a real thing. His mom was a great actress. And not that everybody has to be second generation of anything, but totally he, grew up with a great actress mother, and he just had such charm and class always. And from when he very first started acting, he was just naturally very good, and the camera loved him, and very nice person. Was very, very nice to work with. I don't have any horror stories about anybody else.
That's okay. You don't have to.
Yeah, God, and it's not that I'm a Pollyanna. Believe me, I can be, as Dorothy Parker as I want to be. But everybody was really lovely. It was a great time. Terry Copley was in it, and she was so darling. And Shelley Long, of course, fantastic. And we were on vacation for that one. I think we were in Oregon,
Mm-hmm.
or Seattle, maybe Oregon, where I saw the very first Starbucks, and I thought, this coffee is incredible. I'm going to buy a bunch of it and bring it back to LA. Within a very short time, they were all over us. But I feel like I discovered Starbucks. I should have bought stock in it.
There you go.
It was like the first sort of coffee shop that was a chain there. I thought, oh, this is the best coffee I've ever had. So that was now that year I remember. It was like 1992, 91, something there. Yeah. I'm really bad with years, Greg, I'll be honest with you, because as an actor you have to be. You just blur them all together, but for some reason I do remember that year.
Well, you also were in a film called Goosed, and you got to work with, Jennifer Tilly, Danielle Harris, Joan Rivers.
Joan Rivers played my mother, and a great comedic actor played my father, whose name is, Robert Klein.
Robert Klein, yeah.
He played my dad, and that was also because of Alita Chappelle, who cast me in Nutty Professor. She directed that movie. That was how I got that job, and I was also really good friends with a wonderful actor named David Dukes, who unfortunately also passed away way too young. And he was in the movie. He played one of Jennifer Tilly's suitors. I played Jennifer Tilly's sister. And did you ever see that movie?
I haven't. It's one of those ones that I clicked on here, and I noticed some of the people you worked with in it, and...
Yeah, I worked with some fantastic people, I have to say. And Joan Rivers also, the story was that she had known my mother because she'd been to the Upstairs at the Downstairs Club, which was a hip sort of on-team boîte, they called them in New York, a cabaret kind of show. And Joan was also an up-and-coming comedian at the time, years prior to Goosed. And there weren't that many stand-ups that were women then. And, of course, she knew who my mother was because my mother was kind of doing that. So we had a fantastic rapport, and she was lovely, just lovely to work with. A lot of times people who aren't primarily actors are great actors. Like she was primarily a comedian, stand-up, and that was her main thing. But she was a great actress. Like Don Rickles, primarily a stand-up comedian, but a great actor. Anytime he acted in anything, he was fantastic. So I think there's something to that. And Jennifer Tilly was lovely, really sweet, and everybody in it was great.
Well, I noticed you were in a film called Looking Up. Now, I haven't seen this, but I've interviewed Deborah Sullivan, who I know...
Oh.
Yeah, I've had Deborah Sullivan on here a couple times.
She's great.
Yeah.
Well, the movie is very entertaining. Steve Guttenberg. It was written by Marvin Kaplan, who's one of my... I made a documentary film, Greg. I don't know if you know this, called Troopers. I don't know if that came up anywhere, if you looked me up. But it took me many, many years. I did it with my filmmaking partner, Dale Lawrence, and we made this documentary that's a Valentine to older actors. Marvin Kaplan, who wrote Looking Up, was in my documentary. And so when it came time to do this movie, he just asked me if I wanted to be in it. He didn't audition me. I didn't read, nothing. And I got to work with Steve, and it was just another fantastic experience, very grateful, very lucky. I feel like every job I've ever gotten, I'm just so grateful for, because there's so many people trying to work. Anything you get is just a treat.
I've heard a lot of good things about Steve Guttenberg, including from Lisa Langlois, including from Deborah Sullivan. I've heard really good things about Steve.
And Deborah came off so well in the movie, too. I didn't know other movies she's done. I imagine she's done a lot of work, but she was great in the movie. Steve is a great actor. He's been underrated for years, and I think just now, even though he's had big hit movies that made money, I feel like now he's really getting his due as a good actor. You know what I mean? As opposed to just being a cute guy who can be funny. I think he's really got chops now. It took years of, just living life, I guess. And I love him as a person. He's just a darling person.
Well, Deborah Sullivan's married to director Adam Marcus, and Adam directed Jason Goes to Hell, the 9th Friday the 13th movie. And Yeah, and I interviewed him for that film's 25th anniversary, and he was busy promoting a film called a horror comedy called Secret Santa. And
Oh,
that was my introduction because I got a copy of that movie, and it's about a family gone mad. So
oh,
it's it's gory and hilarious both, and it's directed by him, and it had Deborah Sullivan in it. And so she made such an impression on me in Secret Santa that I had to get her on the show, and then I had them both on earlier
wow.
this year.
Jeez.
Yeah, but I really found Deborah Sullivan to be quite the discovery. So, yep, she was a
Yeah,
lot.
no, I think she's going to do a lot of wonderful things.
Yeah, and of course I do know you got one in post production here, A Very Odd Christmas. You get to work with Tara Reid. You have anything to
Yeah.
say about that?
Yes, well, my scenes were with Stuart Pankin. Do you know Stuart?
I know who that is. Yep, he was in
We
Arachnophobia.
we played husband and wife,
Hmm.
and we are kind of like the neighbors. It's going to be great. Actually, today we're supposed to be locking down some music, and I just think it's going to be hilarious. Hopefully, it will be a big Christmas movie that people will want to watch year after year after year.
Well, you've done quite a bit of television. I noticed you were in Married with Children. That, to me, is the funniest sitcom I ever seen.
It was hilarious to do it. I did a Christmas episode, so they do show it quite a bit. I still get residuals for it. I get residuals for things I did when I was a kid. There's some wonderful people in the episode I did. I gotta look it up though, because I can't remember the names. But it was when Ed O'Neill was going to work in a shoe store to
Hmm.
make money for Christmas for the family, and I played kind of a misguided customer who insisted her foot was much smaller than it actually was.
Oh, I think I know the scene.
You do? You're amazing. I mean, that was pretty damn obscure, Greg. I'll just say that.
Well, I'm going to say this. I watched videos on YouTube of Al Bundy's biggest insults. And I know that's come up. But
Hilarious. Yeah, I think so. I think that is. It's got. Like there's certain Seinfelds that are memorable just by the log line. I think. I think that scene and that one is pretty funny. Yeah, and that was a wonderful thing to do. Wonderful, fun show to be on.
well, you were
Again,
also in Modern Family, and of course Ed O'Neill's in that as well.
yes, but I didn't get to work with Ed. I worked with the. Oh gosh. Well, my scene. This was a very nice job actually. The casting director Jeff Greenberg, who I did a Frasier for in the '90s. He had brought me in for several things because I really needed a job that year to help me with my health insurance. It was one of those things where I was just a little short of making my Screen Actors Guild health insurance, and so I wrote to all the people that I knew who could possibly give me even a day on anything. And my friend Arlene Sorkin recommended me to Jeff, who knew me. And Jeff kept bringing me in and letting me try out for all these different parts. And finally, I nailed one. So I was very, very thrilled and, beyond lucky to get that. But I didn't get to work with that, or I would have been able to say, hey, remember when you tried to sell me some shoes on that Christmas episode? But that didn't happen. I was on the Homeowners Association. It was just on recently because I got a bunch of phone calls from people who watched it. Let's see, what was the setup? So Julie Bowen wanted
Oh yeah.
to build a she shed in her backyard, and she had to come before the Homeowners Association to pitch why she wanted it. And we already had our feelers up that she was crazy and thought maybe she was pulling a gun on us, and that wasn't the case. And then Ty Burrell came in and sort of whisked her away. But hopefully we're going to repeat and recur the Homeowners Association because we had such a great time doing it. These jobs are just the most fun ever, because you spend so much time auditioning and not getting work that when you finally get a job, it's heaven. And I do a lot of theater and stuff to stay active, but when you get even as a line or a one word, anything, it just feels like you won the lottery, because you pitch till you win on these things. You go out for so many auditions.
You also, of course, did a lot of episodes of Spider-Man the Animated Series. You want to talk about that?
I would say that's the greatest job of my life, okay? Spider-Man turned out to be the greatest thing ever. I mean, it just, I can't even tell you. It's been years and years and years of wonderful reruns and feedback and Comic-Cons and people I've met and people who love the show. And I, of course, loved doing it. It was just a wonderful job. And it took a long time to actually be hired for that. I had many auditions for it. And a lot of celebrities wanted the role. Jennifer Tilly really wanted the role. And other ones that I can't think of offhand, but I know she did because I knew her and she told me. And she was on, like, Johnny Carson talking about how I always wanted to play Mary Jane and Spider-Man. And I mean, that's Jennifer Tilly. Smell me. But it was just probably the most fun job because, as everybody knows, you don't have to look like much. You don't have to have your hair done. You don't need eyelashes. You don't need to wear fantastic clothes. You just show up and your voice is your instrument and you get to do things you'd never get to do. And oh gosh, I never screamed so much in my life as I did working on that cartoon. I really developed my screams, which is a skill.
Well, Jennifer Tilly did get to voice Tiffany in Bride of Chucky, though.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, she beat me. I didn't have a chance at that one. But yeah, she's fantastic too. I mean, look, I can't say that she wouldn't have been great, but what was great that it went to me is that they really wanted an actress, not a voiceover person per se, and that was like the first cartoon I ever auditioned for. So that I booked it was kind of incredible. John Semper Jr., who's still a friend, was one of the head writers and producers, and he's around, and I know him from other things. But Spider-Man was really our great connection. I had only done one voice job before Spider-Man. I had done a commercial for Star-Kissed Tuna, and I don't think you were born when. Well, maybe you were, but it probably wasn't in. Do they have tuna? Do they have tuna in Canada?
Yes.
Okay, so I was the voice of a sexy blonde goldfish in the Star-Kissed Tuna commercials, and I worked with Herschel Bernardi, who was in Fiddler on the Roof and a fantastic character actor. And I said, "Oh, Sally, Star-Kissed tuna with good taste. They want tuna that tastes good." And I did that for 5 years, and that was the only voice job I ever did before Spider-Man. The end. Isn't that a great story?
There you go.
So, yeah. So people say, well, what voice did you use when you auditioned for Mary Jane? And I go, this one right here. This is the voice that I use. I just sounded exactly like myself, pretty much.
Well, you mentioned that you've done the cons before, the conventions. What's the most interesting thing you've ever been asked to sign?
Oh, well, there's a question. Stan Lee, who was a saint and loved me, sent a limousine to pick us up to go to Comic-Con with him. And I guess someone asked me to sign their stomach, a very big stomach, and write my full name, which is Saratoga Ballantine. And that was pretty weird, with a kind of pen I'd never seen before. It wasn't permanent, but I mean, I don't think it was permanent, but it was a different kind of pen. Is there some kind of pen that's known to write on skin?
I don't know. I've never done it, but I do hear about stuff like this where they go off and get them signatures tattooed on themselves.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's what happened afterward. Maybe they copied, but I mean, that's pretty crazy for some guy to have Saratoga Ballantine on his belly. I mean, I think that's a little wacko, but that was the craziest thing I was ever asked to sign, hands down.
Okay. So what's up in the future for you?
Well, that's a good question because the future is always the unknown. But tomorrow night, I'm actually part of something. These aren't movies, but tomorrow night I'm doing something called Spoken Word.
Mm-hmm.
Which, do they have that where you are?
Yep.
It's a bunch of writers writing things, and they put it together under a theme, and the theme is show business. So I was asked to participate in this. So I'm doing that tomorrow. And then Sunday night, I'm in the Biffle and Schuster show with Nick Santa Maria and Will Ryan. So we're going to rehearse that a little later today. And I'm working on a musical. I sing. I'm working on an original musical at Theater West called Bring Back Romance by this wonderful woman named Barbara Rotman. So I'm working on that. And, I go on auditions. I have agents. I never know from one day to the next what amazing miracles might occur. What great job is coming my way. So maybe there'll be another. Did you look up Kaplan's Corner? Did you see that web series by any chance I did last year?
I have not, no.
We did 6 episodes. They're very short, Greg. You can certainly watch them all in under an hour. But we might get to do a season 2 of that. I'm kind of the Mrs. Roper of the piece. I'm this man-hungry, one of the people that inherited a employment agency from Marvin Kaplan.
Okay, I'm seeing that here now, yep.
Yeah, and Robert Pine is in it. Do you know who that is?
I don't know who he is, no.
Well, you know who his son is. If you don't know Robert Pine's son, but Robert Pine was on Chips, and his son is Chris Pine.
Yeah, Chips, I've interviewed Larry Wilcox on here, so.
Oh, you have? Well, you should interview Robert Pine because he's like an actor's actor. He's fantastic.
Yes.
And his son is Chris Pine. You know who
Chris Pine, yep. Yep, I do know who he is.
They would be a good, well, I don't know if you can get Chris at this point, but Robert is in Kaplan's Corner. He's fantastic, the nicest guy. I did a play in Waterbury, Connecticut, likely title of Viagra Falls. Yeah, right? And Robert Pine was in it, so I got to work with him for about 5 or 6 weeks in Waterbury. Anytime I went out of town, you bond with the people because you don't know anybody. You have no friends there. You can always talk on the phone, but you end up hanging out with whoever you're working with. So I got to know him, and this is kind of funny because he said one day, "Oh, Sarah, my kid wants to be an actor, and I've told him how tough it is, and, it's a hard road to hoe, and I have his audition video. Would you take a look at it and tell me what you think?" And I watched it, and, it's a really cute kid. Gosh, I wish him all the best, man. I know it's a tough racket, whatever. And the next, in 6 months, he's a big, big star.
Yes.
So you just can never predict how show business is going to go.
No, you do not. Do you have any charities that you're involved in that you want to plug on here?
Oh, gosh. Well, I'm, like I talked about the Magic Castle, we have a charity program, and 4 times a year, I'm allowed to donate VIP passes to the Magic Castle, which is a private club for magicians. So I'm involved with a lot of youth organizations, and I guess any animal organization I'm behind. And even though I was named after a racetrack, very, very disappointed in horse racing industry. So I wouldn't plug that too hard, at all, because it's terrible. But anything to do with dogs or animal rescue, I have participated in. The Actors Fund is a wonderful organization that helps actors in need. And, there are times when you can't pay your rent or you can't, get your eyeglass prescription filled, and they will help you. So I always donate to them. I'm involved with that charity. And, I get so many requests because when my folks were alive, they were involved in charities. So now I've sort of inherited, Cancer Society and Alzheimer's and the Disabled American Veterans. I'm very involved with the veterans. Anyone who's served our country. I'm absolutely connected to so many different ones. But basically, I try to give back as much as I can to help.
Yeah, I know about the Magic Castle because I know Kelly Maroney has been there, and I've seen some posts on Facebook.
Darling Kelly Maroney, yes, I think she's a magician member now. I think she actually, we have magician members and we have associate members. And I believe she passed her magician audition, which is quite a wonderful thing because it's not easy. That, the magicians who are on that committee are pretty tough. And I think she maybe had a couple tries, but she did pass. So, yeah, I haven't seen her much lately because I think her and her husband have been taking care of his family. But, yeah, she was around a lot. Darling person and great actress and fun girl and beautiful and all those good things.
Yeah, when I interviewed her, I had her do the Fast Times at Ridgemont High chant.
She did. Really? Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, when she's in the cheerleader outfit.
Oh, so cute.
Yeah.
So fun.
Yeah, I love Kelly. But, yeah, I'll have to connect Ryan Brown with the Magic Castle because he's a magician I met at Horrorama, and I'm going to see him there.
You mentioned. That sounds good.
He is a guy that
I'm going to look him up. Actually, is he on YouTube and stuff like that?
I think yes, he is. He's on my friends list on Facebook.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've seen him personally do magic act, and so he's definitely great at what he does, and I don't have his interview public yet, but I definitely I did interview him back in March. So
okay.
Yeah, so he's somebody that I think would benefit going to the Magic Castle.
Sure. Yeah, if he can do a 20-minute set and be good, they will probably hire him. I can't say for sure, but he should definitely submit.
Yeah. No, he's a very entertaining guy to watch, so I've seen it firsthand.
Great.
Yeah. So you're going to see...
A lot of magic. I've seen a lot of magic.
Well, I know you're going to see some later on with Nick Santa Maria.
Yeah. I'm a huge fan, even though, my dad was a magician, so I grew up around it. But since he's passed away, I've just become my own magic freak. I just really like it. I'm trying to learn a one-handed cut, and it's taken quite a while. I mastered it with less than 52 cards on an old deck that isn't slippery. So, I'm coming along. But, boy, my hat's off to all these people. I just think, like, it takes 20 years to be a good actor. It must take 20 years to be a really good magician, too. It's not easy.
Well, I know Ryan has been at it since he was really young because I've seen some pictures of him. So,
cool.
Yeah, so, no, I think he would be a benefit to that, so I'll have to let him know about that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. No, well, it was wonderful having you come on here today and reminisce about the Phantom of the Paradise and other films and passions.
It was my pleasure. I hope you got enough good stuff about it. Watch, as soon as we hang up, I'm going to think of more stories and I'll have to write them to you.
Yeah. No, it was a lot of fun having you on. And yes, connect with me on Facebook. I'd be more than happy to have you on there, and then we could stay accessed.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah. But I was going to say, before you go, I was wondering if you'd mind doing a plug for my show.
Okay, hold on. That's cool. I went with a Canadian actor for years, my whole 20s. His name was Scott Hylands. Do you know who that is?
I don't know.
Did you ever watch a TV series called Night Heat?
I have, yes.
He was the lead.
Okay.
Oh, I went with him for like 10 years.
Okay.
I've been to Canada a lot, but mostly Toronto, Vancouver, and Edmonton.
You know where I'm located here?
New Brunswick?
Yeah.
I don't know it.
We're an hour timeline-wise ahead of Toronto.
Oh.
Probably our closest celebrities are the Trailer Park Boys. So.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'll give you your plug.
Go for it.
Hi, this is Saratoga Ballantine. You're listening to Greg Gilbert in Python's Paradise out of New Brunswick, Canada.
Absolutely. Celebrating 45 years of the Phantom of the Paradise, and we have one of the crow dancers with us.
which is amazing because I'm not even 45. I don't know how this happened.
You're 39.
I was very small. I was a crow. Well,
There you go.
a crow.
Jessica Harper's 39 as well.
Who else? Sorry?
Jessica Harper, she's 39 as well.
Yeah, it's better that way. It's all just better. Well, Greg, this was super fun. Was that plug okay? Do you want me to do it again?
No, that was great. That was fantastic. Got it right on.
All right.
Now, Garrett Graham might have aged.
Yeah, I don't know. Gosh, I haven't seen him in so long. I'd love to see him. He was such a doll. I mean, really, really darling.
Well, you know what? I had a wonderful time talking to you today, and would love to. I'd welcome you back in the future, you know. So
thank you. I'll let you know if I do anything good. I'll friend you on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
I'll keep you posted. You never know. Like tomorrow, the phone could ring, and I could have some incredible job, and I'll have to talk to you about it. So. Just let's stay in touch. It was super fun. Thank you for finding me.
Yes, and you remember to tell Nick Santa Maria we're gossiping about him.
I will. I'm telling you, he's going to be here in 4 hours. I'm going to tell him, absolutely.
It takes him that long to get to your house?
No, I have to do some other things, and I believe he's recording today. He does, books on tape.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he has a recording session today, so he will be coming after he wraps that up. And we actually live about 10 minutes apart. We don't live that far from each other.
But it takes him 4 hours.
You're very funny. I'm going to tell him you said that, too.
Well, Sarah, thank you so much for coming on here. It was a real blessing.
Oh, Greg, thank you so much. I had a blast. It was super fun talking to you.
You have yourself a wonderful day. Enjoy that California weather, and God bless.
I will, honey. You too. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.